In the world of AI, there's this huge divide opening up between the companies that are just absolutely crushing it and pretty much everyone else. But what's their secret? What's the playbook? Well, today we're going to unpack what true AI leaders are doing based on a brand new global report to see what's actually moving the needle.
We hear that phrase, AI strategy, thrown around constantly, right? But let's be honest, what really separates a strategy that just looks good in a PowerPoint from one that genuinely drives massive growth? What is that secret ingredient?
Well, it turns out the magic isn't just in the document itself. It's all about the execution, how you turn these complex ideas into real action. And to show you exactly what I mean, we're going to dive deep into the NTT DATA 2026 Global AI Report. I've actually used some incredible AI-powered tools to bring these insights to life so you can see it for yourself.
Okay, so let's get right to it. The report's first and maybe most shocking finding is this massive gap that exists between the AI leaders and the rest of the pack. Just how big are we talking?
Just look at these numbers. Out of thousands of organizations, only a tiny 15% are considered true AI leaders. That's not a small gap. That's a tiny elite club. It tells you that achieving real AI leadership is still incredibly rare, and most companies are frankly still trying to figure it out. And this is exactly why that 15% matters so much. They aren't just a little bit ahead, they're playing a completely different game. AI leaders are almost 2.5 times more likely to see major revenue growth. We're not talking about a gap anymore. This is a chasm, and it's just going to get wider as these leaders reinvest and accelerate.
And this quote right here, it gets to the very heart of the mindset shift. For this elite group, AI isn't some side hustle or a cool pilot project. It's not just a complement to the business plan, it is the business plan. This idea of full fusion is the single biggest strategic difference maker.
Okay, so we've got these powerful insights, but how do you make sure they actually land with impact, right? How do you communicate this stuff effectively? And that brings us to the how. Not just the how of strategy, but the how of communicating it. So for this very explainer, I needed to turn all this dense data from the report into a clear visual story. I used a platform called Higgsfield AI, which is pretty amazing. It lets you generate and animate visuals right from text, all inside a browser. It's basically built to close that gap between a great idea and a final cinematic piece of content. So instead of the old-school, painful production process, my workflow was completely different. I started with the core ideas from the report, and then I used Higgsfield to generate the visuals and animate the data you're seeing right now. It allowed me to build the story and the visuals all at the same time in one seamless flow. And honestly, the real win here is about focus. By basically automating the mechanics of video production, I could spend all my brainpower where it really counts for a leader, on the strategy, on the story, and on the meaning behind all this data. All right, so if great communication is part of the how, let's jump back into the report's findings on execution. Now that we know who the leaders are, let's break down exactly how they do it. What's actually in their playbook? The report really boils it down, and it's not just about who has the flashiest new tech. It's a mix of 4 key things. Really aligning AI with the business strategy and moving fast. Being brave enough to reinvent your core business. Building governance that actually lets you scale. And, this one's huge, using AI to make your best people even better.
And here is a perfect example of what that looks like in practice. Laggards, they tend to just kind of bolt AI onto their old existing systems. But the leaders, they're rebuilding their core applications from scratch with AI embedded right at the center. It's the difference between patching a leaky roof and building a brand new foundation.
And this rebuild approach, it kicks off this incredibly powerful flywheel effect. The early wins you get from these deep foundational investments generate real returns, which then gives you more to reinvest. It's this self-reinforcing cycle of success that makes it almost impossible for anyone else to catch up. And that whole acceleration thing is fueled by a completely different mindset. Look at this. Nearly half of all AI leaders say their goal is to move fast and lead the market. Compare that to the laggards who'd rather let others take the risks first. In the age of AI, that kind of caution isn't a safe bet anymore. It's actually a guaranteed way to get left behind. This leads to what the report calls expert-first AI. And this is so important. Leaders aren't trying to replace their most talented people. They're using AI to amplify them, fusing that irreplaceable human judgment with the speed and scale that only AI can deliver. So this brings everything full circle to the final piece of this whole puzzle, scaling your voice. You've got the insights, you've got these new tools to communicate them. So how do we connect that insight to real influence?
I mean, it really all comes down to this one question. You can have the most brilliant idea in the world, but if it's not communicated well, if it's not really understood and internalized by your team or your board, it's worthless. Today, every leader has to be a storyteller.
So you start with something like this, a really dense, complicated, but super valuable piece of research. Then you use a new generation of tools, like Higgsfield, to translate all that complexity into a clear, compelling, visual story. This is the bridge from data to narrative.
And the end result, it's influence. It's the ability to take a deep strategic idea and scale it, making sure it lands with real impact and actually drives change.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful statement from the CEO of NTT DATA Group. AI leadership is now synonymous with business leadership. Think about that. In the world we live in now, you can't separate the two. You simply cannot be a great business leader anymore without also being an AI leader.
Because ultimately, that's what this is all about. AI leadership is the art of synthesis. It's taking the messy, complicated reality of business and technology and turning it into clarity. Then turning that clarity into decisions, and those decisions into real action and influence.
So as we wrap up, the real question I want to leave you with isn't just about what's written down in your strategy document. The real question is, how are you going to bring that strategy to life? How will you execute it? How will you communicate it? And ultimately, how will you turn your insight into true influence?